Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Pakistan and Belarus are seeking to strengthen their bilateral ties as President of Belarus, Mr. Alexander Lukashenko, is on a 3-day visit to the country. And we know that this is, of course, this visit is the third visit of President Alexander, but this visit comes 8 years when the President of Belarus is visiting Pakistan. This visit holds significance in the sense that both countries are looking to expand their economic as well as trade ties. When we look at, of course, trade volume between both the countries, it was modest $50 million in 2023. And now, when we look at the potential, it is huge, of course. There are, of course, geopolitical alliances as well, which comes into play when we look at the economic aspect of bilateral ties between both the relations. In today's program, we'll be talking about economic trade ties, how both countries are looking to diversify trade relations between both the countries and what lies ahead. Of course, we'll be talking about Pakistan-Belarus roadmap that is being announced, and also the MOUs that have been signed, and both countries are looking towards signing in these coming days. And how about the implementation of those, of course, MOUs between both the countries? To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. HUMMAYUN SHAMI, who is President Economic Forum. Welcome to the program. We're also joined online by Dr. HASSAN ZAFAR, who is economist. Welcome to the program. We're joined by Dr. FARHAT Asifa, who is international affairs analyst. Welcome to the program. Mr. HUMMAYUN, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at this visit, how significant is this visit in your opinion, especially in terms of when we look at the global alliances, and of course when we look at from the terms of change in geopolitical alliances post 2022?
Thank you very much. You are very correct to say that it has many aspects. I think at the same time it is very significant a visit for the economic relationship between Pakistan and Belarus, and at the same time some strategic. And fortunately, our both aspects already are in progress, and we are in contact with these with each other for a long time. If you look at the economic aspect, Belarus, you know, it used to be part of Soviet Union at a time, and highly developed in case of engineering goods, you know. So Pakistan has been importing and still is importing tractors from Belarus. And usually in the villages side they call it Rusi tractors. So, but they are actually manufactured in the Belarus. And then we import some machinery, some we import some chemicals, we import fertilizer from them, some medicine, something. And at the same time we have some strategic relationship with them. Our forces, we have a joint military cooperation also. And Pakistan, you know, now is making progress in the manufacturing of tanks.
Of course, agricultural sector holds immense, of course, significance when we talk about bilateral ties. But still, of course, there are multiple sectors in which both countries need more investments. Coming to you, Dr. Hassan, what message, in your opinion, does this high-level delegation of 68 members send? And of course, how significant is it for Pakistan's own economic as well as foreign policy?
Thank you very much, Maryam, and thank you very much for the question. It's very pertinent. Pertinent because because you, in your opening remarks, you mentioned the year 2022 when this Ukraine-Russia war started, and we all know that. And it ranks, its economy ranks 84th in the 74th in the world by its GDP, and it is predominantly an agri-based economy. But I was listening to the joint press conference of Belarus President Mr. Lukashenko,
Lukashenko.
Lukashenko and President and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in Islamabad a while ago. It was very important because they made a statement that we are a high-tech country. We can export electric vehicle technology and other technologies to Pakistan. And he also emphasized that Pakistan should be paying attention to smaller, medium-sized powers in the world, as well as because our traditional focus is on the big powers when it comes to importing technology and other equipment from the
Right.
world. So that is very important.
Right, very,
If
very pertinent point raised by you, Dr. Hassan, and of course that leads me to my next question, that is to Dr. Farhad. Dr. Farhad, when we look at from the geopolitical and diplomatic aspects, how do you think it, what is its significance specifically from Pakistan's lens, as Pakistan is reaching out to diversify its foreign policy and also reaching out to small and other Eurasian states?
Thank you so much, Maryam. It is very important that President of Belarus is here at this important time. It is also to remember that just a month ago, we had hosted Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where summit happened where in Pakistan, where Belarus was became one of the important member of the SCO, and its membership has been solidified, and Pakistan hosted that summit as well, where other member countries, including from the Eurasian Central Asian republics, China, Russia, and India, and of course many other observer member countries were there. Pakistan's diversification in reaching out to different countries is also primarily based on the economic cooperation. If you look at also the roadmap that has been signed, the business forum that has been done, and of course the presence of Belarusian presidents here in Pakistan, is all revolved around Pakistan's looking at diversification of economic cooperation with countries, and primarily it is more the inclination towards geoeconomic factors. If you look at the roadmap, I'm constantly referring to the roadmap because it is important where we are looking at how Pakistan's broader level of industrial cooperation, industrial hub, in cooperation with a country like Belarus, which is also, it will take a longer period of time for the trade going from Pakistan to Belarus, and of course coming from Belarus to Pakistan. However, what is important is that looking at how Pakistan and Belarus are looking at the diversified regional connectivity level kind of cooperation as well. If you look at TAPI, many other inter-regional cooperation agreements that are there, and of course the connectivity projects, including BRI. And when you look at global, regional, and regional,
we will be discussing all these aspects, of course, one by one and later in the program in depth. But Mr. Hummayun, when we look at, of course, these aspects, how do you think, how significant is Pakistan-Belarus roadmap 2025 to 2027, and what are the main areas both countries are going to be putting their focus on?
Thank you. First of all, I will like to clarify here that the out of the independent states, which was used to be part of the Soviet Union at time, Belarus is very, very close to the Russia.
Yes.
Now we are seeing that the Russia is intending to have more cooperation in field of economy and even the strategic relationship, and under the SCO definitely. But now I think the Belarus, when it is coming, it means that a new strategic alliance is coming up, a new dimension is coming up. So as far as the direct bilateral investment between the trade and investment between the two countries is concerned, as I have said, that agriculture and the pharmaceuticals are the main issues, main areas where both the countries can have a big potential. And the engineering sector, Pakistan is developing its engineering sector, and Belarus already is very developed, one of the developed countries in the engineering sectors. And these two areas, two, three areas, very sure. Then Pakistan has a potential in the mining sector, and there are lots of minerals here in this country. They can cooperate in it. So these two, if we focus on 2-3 areas like agriculture production, agriculture machinery, I mean agriculture machinery, and then second is the pharmaceutical, and third is the mineral. So I think if we focus at the first instance only these three areas, I think it can pave way for another cooperation between the two countries, because we have to see that what is going to happen and what good results we get out of these, So I think but it should be by
how
step
it can
and step.
lead to other potential areas
Yeah,
of
so
cooperation.
it should be one by one. Steps should be one by one.
Right. And Dr. Hassan, when we look at the MOUs that have been signed and that are going to be signed between high-level delegations between both the countries, in your view, what are some of the MOUs that holds immense importance for both the countries, and also in your view, what are some of the areas in which both countries are going to be working towards immediately or need to be work immediately?
Right. The MOUs are, of course, of some importance, but the real agreement in which the Belarus delegation have shown interest is Pakistan's textile sector. They have very clearly asked Pakistan to, explore this possibility of extending their textile sector to Belarus, and in return they can offer us engineering help in engineering sector and the agriculture sector. These are very, very obvious things. But what we need to understand, Maryam, that Belarus and Pakistan, they share certain things when it comes to their economic structures. Like Pakistan, Belarus economy is also a mixed economy. There's a huge government control on the large-scale manufacturing there, of course, which they inherit from the Soviet era, and the way Russian economy is structured at the moment, very, very centralized, very, very controlled. So in that sense, this delegation, and that is why probably the president himself is leading it.
Very pertinent point made here, Dr. Hassan, and I have to stop you here because it leads me to my next question. That is, of course, we discussed earlier that the trade volume in 2023 was very modest, that is $50 million. And both countries now think and know that, of course, there is a huge potential. And since you refer to structural changes or structural flaws on both sides, in your opinion, what kind of structural flaws exist and how both countries can cooperate in addressing those structural flaws and move forward?
Is this for me? Well, in our case, in Pakistan's case, we are already worried about, and our government is also focusing on deregularization, and that is also a demand by the IMF that you deregulate your economy. You withdraw the government footprint on the businesses, several businesses, the state-owned enterprises, etc. So that is already on the table, and we are working on it. We'll have to see if this design is also somewhere close to how Belarus is imagining and envisaging their economy, and how if they are also willing to liberalize their markets, because right now we can see in a mixed economy, the government takes the major share in the market. So that is why, as I was saying, probably that's why Belarus president himself is leading the delegation, because of course there are businessmen, there are bureaucrats, there are government officials. It's a mix of different people in that delegation, and the president himself leading an economic delegation means that, of course, he is in charge of everything. So his presence matters in Pakistan, and it should not be taken lightly. It should not be taken as a visit from a smaller country, because Eurasia is the future focus of the world, because all the power struggle is going to take place in this area: Pakistan, Central Asia, Russia, Eastern Europe. That is the focus of the world. That is where the world resources are.
And do you think that Western sanctions are going to be playing some part when we talk about economic cooperation and also when we talk about, of course, implementation of these agreements? What about the timelines to ensure the effectiveness of these agreements?
The time will show that how effective these agreements turn out to be, because the sanctions matter, and that is probably why Belarus comes into the picture. Russians himself are not coming into contact with Pakistan. They understand how the West is going to respond to that. So they have used their satellite state, go to Pakistan, talk to them, make them offers. So definitely, if Pakistan takes this opportunity, Belarus will have a lot to offer in terms of science and technology and in the engineering sector, in which Pakistan needs to make some significant changes in its own approach to how they want to embrace a modern structure for itself.
Right, right. And Dr.
Because
Farhat,
that's
right, right, of course. And Dr. Farhat, when we talk about economic cooperation, of course, we have to look towards and bring in private sector as well. How significant is a private public partnership, and also what kind of investment opportunities lies in both countries for each other when we look at bilateral cooperation in trade and investment, and expanding and diversifying joint of course investments in both on both sides.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maryam. Before I answer this question, I also would like to share that such kind of big delegation that comes from a country, both the ambassadors of both countries have played a very immense, great role in mobilizing the resources and mobilizing the country, projecting our, and I would like to commend our ambassador there in Belarus, who has been instrumental in projecting Pakistan's image and creating a lot of, insight and excitement about Pakistan. And such a big delegation has come, and I mean, on your platform, I would like to commend him and his work as well. As far as the private sector and cooperation is concerned, when I was looking at the various cooperation agreements that has been signed, and list of the MOUs signed, and also the during the business forum, this launch of this roadmap has been signed. I was looking at that the private sector is always a backbone for the economy and building up. Although the state structures are giving the private sector the opportunity to create a lot of structures, a lot of roadmaps and all that, but private sector is the driving force. If you look at the business forum that was held yesterday, there were nearly 200 plus companies who were there participating with each other, signing agreement with each other. And I was looking at a lot of roadmap. Again, I'm sharing the roadmap because the contours of the roadmap also include how the financial monitoring departments of one country to another, how the auditors will be exchanging their information with each other, how terrorist financing will be reduced from both sides, how the state control and committees and auditors are sharing each other's experiments. But this roadmap, regardless of the structures given, private sector will always chip in, where there will be signing. Of course, they have signed many MOUs, the private companies had building up. And if you look at the numbers of currently where the trajectory is growing up, almost 3%, but when you plug the private sector and the manufacturing units and private investments, then it will be kind of a projection more. And of course, they always play a very important role in building up the relationship between both countries. Not only private sector in business, but also in education, in research organizations, media, corporation, in whole.
Of course, and cultural exchange programs as well. Of course, that remains significant importance as well. But coming back to you, Mr. Hummayun, Belarus has already, of course, expressed interest in enhancing connectivity through roads and railways. How feasible is this in the context of BRI? And how do you think both countries should be working towards enhancing connectivity? Because when we talk about enhancing the trade volume, connectivity remains an important aspect of it. Of course, making infrastructures, providing feasible environment to investors as well. So how feasible is this?
No, connectivity is always feasible, there is no doubt in it. But, already we are in contact with the Uzbekistan and Pakistan. We already have signed a MOU probably. So connectivity rail link between Uzbekistan and Pakistan, and that will be through Afghanistan obviously. And but with the Belarus, it could only be through Uzbekistan, I think, Uzbekistan or Azerbaijan or something, So this we have to see how it is going to happen. But obviously connectivity is always there. But the road links are there, road links, and some, if there have to be some shipping also, But I think links are there, and it's
right.
not,
Let me come back to you and take the same question to Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan, what is the potential for collaboration between Pakistan and Belarus on projects like a trade corridor to Central Asia that is modeled after maybe Karakoram Highway? Because we know that Belarus has expressed interest in enhancing connectivity between both the countries.
It's a long distance. We have Afghanistan, we have Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, and then Russia. If we cross these three countries, then we reach Belarus, that is bordering the west of Russia and north of Ukraine. That is where Belarus is. So that geographical position, well, possibility is certainly there, but we have to see that we have a congenial environment in Afghanistan in the first place to be able to launch any kind of rail or road network project there. And do the both countries really have those resources? So that seems to be a far cry, frankly speaking. But what is important? Yes, trade is important, and there are a number of other ways. We can use sea route, which is always cheaper, which is always more reliable. So we have a sea route, and it also depends on the trade volume. Also depends on what we are exporting and what we are exporting from each other. So that remains to be seen. But what is important? Yes. Okay. You have a question?
Right. I'll come back to you. But Mr. Shami, when we look at, of course, investment opportunities, what kind of climate are Belarusian investors looking for in Pakistan? Of course, we have discussed the sectors as well, but we keep on discussing in our shows that there needs to be diversification of the traditional areas that Pakistan should be looking towards. So what needs to be done?
Needs to be done. First of all, what was your first question? I mean, first
about
part of that
connectivity and
not connectivity. We have discussed that, but the Russians, the potential, what the cooperation can be with the Russian or something. So that is basically the thing is that with the Russia, if we talk, but now we are part of SCO. So SCO is expanding day by day. So obviously, the cooperation with Pakistan, Russia and Belarus, it could be very feasible. As far as the Russian, Russians are very good in agriculture. They are very good in petroleum because they are the biggest oil producing country in the world. They are very good in minerals. They are very good in engineering goods, So Pakistan and in past Pakistan, steel mill of Pakistan was, established by with the Russian cooperation, and lots of our defense related projects like tanks, they are also having the collaboration with the Russians and the Ukraine and the Belarus engineering industry. So I think then pharmaceutical industry is one where we can cooperate. We can cooperate in fertilizer sector, we can cooperate, mineral sector we can cooperate, because Russia is considered as the biggest mineral, they have the biggest mineral deposits in the world. So these all areas where they have expertise, and Pakistan needs, and then cooperative, we are now in the era of corporate forming here in Pakistan. We are encouraging that. So I think that Russia can invest in the corporate farming here in Pakistan. So these all are the areas, but we have to begin with one or two areas, I think. So look result and go further, because going for many projects at the same time, 10, 11, I don't think it will be very feasible. It will be very difficult to then cope with all the, matters in it. So start with 2, 3, like petroleum sector is there, agriculture sector is there, this mineral sector is there. So pharmaceutical already, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, there was MOUs were signed, and most of the good thing was this, that the MOUs with the Belarus were signed. Most of them were with the private sector. So that's good that the private sector is also in coming up, and they are interested in exploring, and they, since they have quick decision making, so definitely I think they are in better position to mature those MOUs into reality very soon, as comparing to the government, where there are lots of interests, so lots of other checks and balances. So I think
Right.
that will be
of course,
feasible.
let me take the same question to Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan, of course, like Mr. Hummayun alluded to the signing of agreements between both the countries, but implementation remains a main question. How significant, in your opinion, are the signing of agreements worth $17 million between both the countries, and what are the timelines are we expecting?
Needs to be celebrated here is the visit of a country that is close to a superpower, Russia, and in my understanding, they are not operating in Pakistan without their consent. So what are the takeaways for us? This is an opportunity for Pakistan to make its geopolitical choices as the world is making readjustments after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and of course the geopolitical situation changing in relation to China-US relationship, and this shift from unipolar world to multipolar world. So how ready we find ourselves to adjust ourselves in this changing world. So that it should be looked at. This visit of the Belarus president to Pakistan should also be looked at from this perspective. It is providing us with an opportunity to open up ourselves to other possibilities, and I'm sure that our decision makers sitting in Islamabad are fully aware of the implications of this visit. It is not just the economic thing, it is opening up to other possibilities, because we understand that the European market is not as vibrant as it was before. There are other markets emerging in the world, and Belarus, if it itself is not a very huge market, but it represents a market that is emerging, Eurasian market and East
It is a
Asian
door to
market.
new opportunities, of course, of course.
Yes.
Lastly, my last question to you, Dr. Hassan, is that, of course, you mentioned about the turbulent global environment, how Pakistan can leverage its membership in multilateral platforms like SCO, of which, of course, Belarus is also part of, to enhance and strengthen these ties, not only solidifying these ties, but also, of course, enhancing and opening doors towards Eurasian markets as well.
Yes. Look, the statement, the joint press conference in Islamabad today, the president and prime minister together there, this is significant. This is important. When uh, so Pakistan should be looking at this opportunity from this perspective, in
And looking
create
at
space
is
for them. Create
right.
space for them, because this will be the future. Eurasia is the future, and East China's region is the future. That is where the major market of the world is. This part of the world is more than half of the population. This is the major market of the world, and how ready we are to capitalize on this opportunity, that remains to be seen in the times to come, how our decision makers can think about it. It does not really mean delinking ourselves with the Western partners, because we know our major export market is the United States. But let me assure you, it does not offend the Americans if we are trading with other countries. That's not the case.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan ZAFAR, for joining us in today's program. Dr. Farhat, of course, important points have been raised by Dr. Hassan when we look at the geopolitical situation. Do you think this is a diplomatic win for Pakistan? And also, how do you think that Belarus's relations and of course wishes from both sides to solidifying these relations aligns with foreign policy of Belarus in terms of how it's looking towards other countries in not only in South Asia but Central Asia as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maryam. This is a very important question, and building on what my other colleagues had also shared, that it is also a win for Pakistan, specifically when we look at that how country is grappling with economic situation, political, geopolitical situation. There is a terrorism, terrorism is rising on the border regions. We are struggling with that as well, and that is causing a lot of issues at global scale for us. But at the same time, when we look at this high-level visit, at this point in time, when we are struggling at various levels, such presence is meaningful and also creating a very positive image for Pakistan and for the government as well, for projecting it and creating such an environment where business agreements have been done. I mean, such a huge entourage of the people who had joined in from Belarus coming in and asking and joining the companies and then, signing MOUs. And this is a kind of a trust and this is a kind of a leverage that any country can look up to, and especially when a visit happens. And of course, when the roadmaps and all those kind of several important agreements are signed. So at even your first section of the question about leveraging that positivity from Pakistan, and of course at the global scale when a high-level visit happened, especially as Dr. Hassan has also shared and my other colleague has also shared, that this Belarus is the significance of Belarus there in the region as a landlocked nation, where surrounded by such an important region where Poland, where Russia is there, and cooperation agreements are cooperation is building up, and especially when this region is in hotbed of war. And at the same time, when you look at the Belarus point of view and their position, as my other colleagues also shared, that looking at their own economy struggling at the moment, of course, the sanctions and many other, this expansion of coming from Eurasian region and then looking at towards Pakistan and then looking at their position there in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, leveraging that as well, is building up. And I think that when you were asking the question about BRI, I think that it is a very important pivotal point connecting the entire BRI from there in China towards Europe. And if you look at the trade volume that is coming from the countries from China onwards to Europe, Belarus is a pivotal point. When the traveling, the routes are from there, from China to Kazakhstan and then Belarus and Russia, and of course going those to sea freight and of course through the land routes that are there. So a significance of Belarus at the same time is also important, and for them, us as important country here,
of course, it's a mutually beneficial, ties between both the countries. But of course, when we look at strengthening the ties, we keep on coming back to the main question to ensure the implementation of agreements that have been signed and that are going to be signed during these days. First, my part of the question, and second, of course, you earlier mentioned about the technological advancements, especially in engineering sector and agriculture sector that Belarus has. What lessons, in your opinion, Pakistan can learn from Belarus?
Whereas your first part of that question is this, that that was about the
bilateral agreements.
Bilateral agreements, that's there are some problems, as Dr. Hassan said, rightly said, the not very big amount of agreements have been signed. $60-70 million is not a big amount, but the problem is that we have some. Still, I don't think that the Pakistan and Belarus having good banking connectivity, that will become a problem, because when you open the LCs and so with that for the trade. So, but we have to see that how we can manage these things. But then there are some sanctions also. You know, the Russian, there are some sanctions, and recently, you know, one of the Belarus firm was also you know, banned by the
Yes.
America on the supplying of some instrument.
That's what we meant.
So that was
that
could be a little problem. But the good point which I said, you know, that the most of the agreement, most of the MOUs have been signed by the private sectors, and when the private sector comes into force, you know, so they have quick decision, and then they must have done their own homework. So they have the capacity to bring that investment, and I think that these agreements can be, if the will is there and the process remains the same, there is no hurdle in that, you know, no any further deadlock in any cooperation. So this can be achieved in 1 year or 2 years, not a big deal. So, but we should hope for another, for some bigger cooperation and big MOUs also. And then your lesson is this, that we should progress, you know, like they have progress, we have to build our engineering industry. We are good in engineering thing, you know, but still we need lot of new technology which Belarus can supply us, because Belarus is very close to Russia, so Russia gives everything to them.
Skills development remains an important aspect.
Very aspect. So Russia, and then even then Belarus also has good relationship with the West also. And I told you that it is actually a buffer thing between, you know, so whenever Russia has to say something, communicate something very secretly, so that is to the West, so that is communicated through the Belarus, and same way, you know, vice versa, that they say to Belarus and Belarus then send to Russia. So in this way they are good, and their engineering industry is very good. They are so engineering industry, which is I mean, Pakistan needs engineering, you know, engineering industry. If we build our engineering industry in a proper way, so I think lots of our problems can be solved.
Right. And Dr. Farhat, where do you see Pakistan-Belarus relations in next 5 years, given the exchange of high-level delegations that we are seeing now?
Important question which we look at, because whenever these kind of visits happen, what is important is not what has happened during the visit or the agreement signed. What is important is that how those, you know, driving forces are there to move those agreements to further, you know, solidifying it or exchanging, continuous exchange of the visit. What I see in the framework that has been given, and also the MOU signed during the during this visit between the different companies, different levels of agreements, the MOUs that have been signed, I think that beyond MOUs, what is important is that those people who are sitting at the important positions, for example, if the agreement is signed between, for example, the Customs Committee of Belarus and Customs Service of the Federal Board of Revenue between Pakistan and Belarus, what is important is how the person who is sitting here in Pakistan in the Customs Service, looking at what are the agreements that have been signed, what are the contours of it, and how we implement those contours and continuously engage with our partners. Of course, there's a limit of the agreement signed. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 6 years, and depends on that. And based on that, I think that every institution, whatever the agreement has been signed, it depends on the people who will be at the driving force. And I think that based on that, again, not only those institutions, a foreign office, and then again our embassies and ambassadors who are looking at and making these headways, their role will remain important. Of course, the companies who had at the private level, my colleagues have also said that, you know, driving force will remain those colleagues, those private companies who had been, you know, looking at those agreements, and they are of course for the profit. But at the same time, helping them, these institutions will be important. For example, custom training and many other state-controlled monitoring, financial monitoring, for example, or research, for example, or cooperation with the National Academy of Sciences between both countries, or scientific cooperation. So all depends on the fact that how the state institutions will be helping the private institutions and leveraging this momentum that has been created. So it all depends on that.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Farhat Asifa, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. HUMMAYUN SHAMI, for joining us in today's program. Of course, this visit of a Belarusian president is important for both the countries in strengthening and deepening ties between both the countries, especially when we talk about economic and trade relations. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.